Welcome everyone to Stadium Journeys Obstructed Views, the show where a couple of guys in a couple of countries have a couple of beers and discuss a stadium somewhere in the world and their experiences there. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And we're excited to be here with you again tonight. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the Stadium Journey YouTube channel. Like the video, even if you don't, we won't judge. Leave a comment if you feel so inclined. And check out stadiumjourney.com for all of our fantastic content. So let's get started. Dave, what are you drinking today?
Well, this is a happy coincidence, I think. Yeah, we like happy coincidence. So I took a trip out west. My sister-in-law's favorite restaurant is in the big park. It's called Stanley Park. And her favorite restaurant was called the Fish House. And it's not the Fish House anymore. It's a brewery now. So Stanley Park Brewing popped in there, had a great lunch. Nanaimo bar, like the only place you could get a better Nanaimo bar is probably in Nanaimo, which is on the island, but so west of where I was. But what's a happy coincidence is we're talking Atlanta today, and when you talk about Atlanta, you have to talk about peaches. So I have today a Sunsetter Peach Wheat Ale from Stanley Park Brewing in Vancouver. So you got the nice little, sunset view, and actually you could walk, 5 minutes to the beach right from that brewery. So that could very well be the beach that's right outside of Stanley Park there, right? Beautiful spot, and it's peachy. It's got me thinking Hot-lanta, and it's all good. What do you got?
That can does look most tranquil.
It does.
To borrow a phrase from Bill and Ted. So you've got the first half, the Atlanta. I got the second half. I got the Hawks. Because we've been talking a lot about lately how everybody's got their own branded beer now when you go to a game. So I've been drinking a lot of branded beers when I go to games, even when I'm credentialed. Don't tell anybody. I was at a UMass Lowell game. I don't know if I was there for UMass Lowell hockey or if I was there for the Boston Fleet, but either way, I went and I grabbed a Rowdy's House UMass Lowell branded lager. So I don't know if you can see, which way does this need to go? So there's Rowdy, and UMass Lowell are the River Hawks. So I don't know why he's got a 3 there. Oh, that's an E because it's made by Epigraph Brewery. That's their logo right there. I thought it was a 3, but it's an E. So that's my beer. So you got the Atlanta, I got the Hawks. We're talking about the Atlanta Hawks. If you were drinking, I just ruined the surprise. Buried the lead. Anyway, if we're visiting today's destination, we might be drinking an Old Man Clemens Smoked Helles from Wrecking Bar Brew Pub in Atlanta, Georgia, because today, like I just said, we're talking about State Farm Arena, home of the Atlanta Hawks. Before we get started, let's take a look at the Stadium Vitals.
All right, welcome back, and we are here to discuss the Atlanta Hawks and their home State Farm Arena, and we brought in a true ringer, Atlanta born and bred. Welcome to Obstructed Views, Lloyd Brown.
Well, thank you for having me, Dave. I'm glad to be able to share what I know about State Farm.
All right, so as you can see, I'm probably the only person north of the border here who has multiple Atlanta Hawks jerseys. But, in doing the research, we saw that, of course, the Atlanta Hawks moved from St. Louis in 1968, which is just 2 years after the Braves moved from Milwaukee, and then the Falcons also started their tenure. So I always felt like the Hawks were kind of like, they seem to be like the first team to really kind of make it big-ish in Atlanta, and then they sort of fell off. So where do you see the Hawks in the Atlanta sport-scape?
Well, presently they're doing really well. We had a last month they were like 13-2 in games, so they're competing. I think they're 5th in the playoff. Whatever the playoff setup, they're about in the 5 position, which usually they're in the play-in game. So they're doing much better. And, it's been kind of strange because the team has had this upswing, and Trae Young is no longer with the team, who was the star for so many years.
That's
Now,
true. They
he
sort
was
of traded
hurt
their
early.
identifiable commodity, and then they seem to get better after.
Yeah, I mean, I have been very amazed at the teams they're playing. I mean, I think they beat the Celtics like 2 or 3 times this year, and that's usually maybe once we'll beat them out of the 3 or 4 times we play them in a season, but they've been really successful this year. And so
So,
it seems to be more of a team thing. I don't know that there's one guy that's turned the team around.
so what's the fan reaction been? Have they really kind of captured the imagination of the Atlanta fans?
I think, well, obviously, they fill that niche in between the end of the Falcons season, and then Braves start up, and honestly, yeah, the Braves pretty much still own the town, because, they got off they did get off to a really good start. Now they're, I think, 6-5, but that still seems to be our most successful team in the long range scheme of things. So, but I definitely think, there's been an uptick. You heard a lot about the Hawks this year. There's a local station that carries a lot of their home games, which you never saw home games on TV or before. And so I definitely think there is a market that is very supportive of the Hawks. I mean, when I went to the Martin Luther King Day game, which was an afternoon game. And they were in, large groups in there that were obviously season ticket holders. And they, really rambunctious bunch. And so, the crowd was really enthusiastic. It was a good experience. And that kind of, I think, reflected in my review.
Yeah, I took a peek at the attendance, and the attendance doesn't seem to be spectacular. I mean, they're in like the really bottom end of NBA attendance. Now, that being said, over time, the renovations have really brought the capacity down. So they're averaging almost close to capacity, but that capacity is really kind of low. Like I believe that the capacity is just over 17,000, and they're averaging about 16 and change. So like there's not a ton of room to grow.
No.
But that being said, they're still way down.
I think they've even taken out seats. I mean, the original seating plan for that arena, when I went, I noticed like at the end, one of the ends, they had like a club area or something like that, which had to take out a lot of seats.
Well,
now,
when it opened, capacity for the Hawks when State Farm Arena opened, Phillips Arena at the time, I guess, was over 20,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think some of the things with the stadiums, arenas, ballparks, they're getting away from like actually seats for the rear ends and putting in all these special activity areas, clubs, lounges, bars, restaurants, and that's fine, but you're taking away some of your seating capacity.
That's true. That's true. Now, I've kind of viewed Atlanta as. And tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm trying. I don't want to sound like I'm being too harsh, but I feel like the interest in whatever the team is really going to ebb and flow with how successful they are, and I think part and parcel to that is Atlanta's sort of development as this big event city, right? Atlanta had the Olympics. Often has the Super Bowl, has the Peach Bowl, which is also translated into, college football national championship. And, I'm sure they've had the Final Four. Like, how does Atlanta's, big event city sort of permeate down to the Hawks? Do you think that helps? Do you think that hurts?
I just see the heights. It's always been somewhat of a personality-based thing because the Hawks have always had a face of the Hawks. Okay. I mean, I go back, Pete Maravich. We had Lou Hudson. Okay. There was that era. Then you had, of course, the Dominique Wilkins era. Then you had the Trae Young era. So it's somewhat kind of been personality based as far as the support. I mean, obviously, you've been to the arena. Dominique Wilkins got a statue right outside
That's
of there.
true.
And so, over the years, they've always kind of been a middle range team. I mean, they'll have a year or two where they've really never, when that I've remembered, they've never gotten to the finals. I think maybe a couple of times over all the years they've existed, have they gotten to within two preliminaries before the finals, whatever that semifinal, quarterfinal. They've never gotten deep into the playoffs.
I feel
And
like
I think that's
they ran into the
the
Bulls
expectations not there
a
that they're
number of
going to.
times. They ran
Huh?
into the Celtics a number of times, and
Oh, sure.
yeah,
Well, they're playing quality teams, but I'm just saying they've got enough to make the playoffs, but not to go real deep into the playoffs.
and I think it's interesting what you're saying about the face of the Hawks, and maybe one of the first faces of the Hawks was Ted Turner, who
Oh, yeah.
when he started with the Hawks was he was a bit of a he was a
It's like,
celebrity.
oh, what's Ted done this time?
Yeah, he was visible. Maybe one of the first real kind of visible NBA owners, and did he not want to like coach the team at one point, or was that what he owned
No,
the
that was
Braves?
that was the Braves. That was the Braves. He got rid of the manager and he managed for 2 nights, and the commissioner told him he couldn't do that anymore. So, but I mean, just a little aside, is he actually had a condo, or I think I think Jane Fonda lives in it now, but right next door, what used to be the CNN Center. So he
Oh,
literally
okay.
lived right on the property. Because all he had to do is come out of the CNN Center and go into the, State Farm
Well, and it
or
seems like
Phillips, as the case was.
it seems modern in the modern sort of era. They've really tried to like even use like Jamie Gertz as sort of that celebrity owner.
Yeah,
And if I remember this correctly, she's married to Tony Wrestler. Is that correct?
right,
Who's the
right.
majority owner? And yeah, when I was there last, she had this whole it was like this whole surfing bit, right? Where she would go down and she'd dance and they'd, I don't know, on the court, like right at the beginning, between the third and fourth quarter, I think, and try to rile up everybody. I'm not sure if it worked or not, but
Well, too, part of the situation with the Hawks is, and this goes back a little bit, but it's funny because it relates to the Thrashers, is that you had the gang of eight. You had like eight owners that all had parts of both the Hawks and the Thrashers. And the situation was you had five guys that wanted to do this with the Hawks and then three that didn't. You had the hockey team. None of these guys were hockey people. They didn't, and so that was one of the reasons, people ask, well, why can't you keep a hockey team? Well, the gang of eight guys didn't know anything about hockey. So eventually, we lost the Flames. We lost the the Thrashers. And it wasn't that they weren't decent teams, it was the ownership. And so I think that's probably hurt the Hawks too, is, when you have ownership by committee, it doesn't necessarily work.
that's true.
Now,
That's true.
it's for a few years we had Danny Ferry was our general manager of the Hawks. And in those years, they had some good drafts, they had some good trades. If you ask me now who the general manager is, I couldn't even tell you.
I
So,
have a hard. I couldn't tell you who's on the. I had to look up to see who's on the roster. That's how.
well, yeah, so did I. I mean, especially after Trey left.
Right.
But I think Quinn Snyder is a good coach, and I think he's done a lot with what he has to work with. But you just don't have that player that's going to get you all the way through the playoffs.
That's true. Let's shift gears slightly. Let's look at the building. So, State Farm Arena, built in 1999, originally Phillips Arena. I mean, my opinion in general of NBA arenas is they're pretty bland. A lot of them just seem to look like one another. And right off the top, Atlanta gets bonus marks for just looking so unique on the outside. With the neat Atlanta I-beams or whatever that's kind of holding up the sort of canopy.
Right.
And then of course, you got the Dominique statue right there. And then, it's a little bit different. It's clear that in their latest renovation that, now they don't have to worry about hockey at all. So it's become really a basketball venue. How do you think that State Farm Arena sort of stacks up in and of itself versus some of the other NBA arenas?
Well, I've been to all NBA arenas over time, but to me, when somebody mentions State Farm to me, I don't necessarily think of the Hawks first. I think of it primarily as a concert venue because it really has the top notch, unless you're going to have somebody that's a stadium level that's going to be in a Mercedes Benz, Garth Brooks and that type of, or Taylor Swift, people like that. Those are going to be over at Mercedes Benz. But, for any night the Hawks aren't playing, there's probably a concert down there. So I think of it more of a concert venue, and it seems to win awards for being a great concert venue.
Okay.
But as far as the design of it, the problem with it at the moment is there's a lot of construction going on around it. And some of it, Atlanta's always wanting to develop this or that. But for instance, one of the ways that you entered, like if you were going from Centennial Park, which is a big tourist attraction, and you wanted to come to see a game at the State Farm, you can't go through the CNN Center or what was the CNN Center anymore. They are doing this massive renovation. It's going to be just known as the Center.
Okay.
But CNN is totally out of there. And so going in, I used to get on, go to Centennial Park, come through CNN Center. There were some restaurants and things to do there. You could tour the CNN Center. There was activity, and then it had a connecting entrance right into the arena. That's been shut down because they're doing this huge renovation, in that building. Now, you mentioned the iconic spelling out Atlanta on the front of the outside of the arena. Well, across the street, if you've been to Atlanta, there's a viaduct. There was a bunch of railroad tracks. There was a parking deck across the street, across Techwood Drive from the arena. Well, there's something now going up called Centennial Yards, and it's hotels. They're building a sphere thing like they have in Las Vegas. So guess what? That view of the arena is getting blocked. If you were across there, in the southern part of downtown Atlanta, you could look all the way across and you saw Atlanta spelled out. Now you're only going to be across the street to see all that spelling out. So one of the greatest defining features is blocked by all this new construction.
Right.
So it's, that kind of is I think hurt the ambiance of the place a little bit. Now, connectivity wise, it's great because you've got the MARTA station right there at the arena. So that part of it's very good, but parking is kind of helter-skelter around there. Because some of those parking decks are gone that are being replaced by, the construction.
I found Atlanta to be really unique in that sort of viaduct. It seems like everything's on a platform. And probably one of the biggest things that surprised me was maybe not getting in because I'm notoriously early for all the games and I'm not sitting in traffic waiting very often. So I've always found that getting into the places has been easy because I usually want to go really early. What shocked me is how quick everything gets out. And I found in that area, they do a really good job of directing the traffic and like some of those parking decks you were talking about. Well, you got to go out this way and you got to go this way and this way and this way and this way and minimizing the choice, but the flow of traffic is really quick. So I found that in both spots actually at State Farm Arena, at Mercedes-Benz, like getting out was a lot quicker than I ever expected it to be.
Well, and one of the things they've even changed the station now is called it's convention, arena, and sports entertainment station now. So because you not only got the stadium and the arena, you've got World Congress Center, which is huge as far as conventioneers coming to Atlanta. Now, I do think that State Farm does benefit, because a lot of these conventions that come to town, they'll get a package, with State Farm for a Hawks game. And so I think a lot of the attendance at some of the games has to do with what convention's in town. Because, you might have a bunch of guys from Boston or something. I mean, they're
Right.
And now Boston, you're going to fill the arena. I mean, there's certain teams you're going to fill the arena, but let's just say New Orleans and Atlanta. I mean, you're going to be lucky to get 10,000 people for a game like that.
Right. And you bringing up you brought up the Marta. One of the unique features of that station, that exit, right. I don't know if you're looking at the Atlanta on the thing. It's just to the left. Is the overhang is similar to the old Omni roof. It just had the Omni had this unique sort of I don't know. It was almost like an egg carton kind of style.
Yeah, that used to call it the egg carton.
So what was that like?
Tear that down because it was rusting too quickly.
So what was it? What was it like in the Omni? Like, did the Omni have like just a different personality to it than sort of State Farm does?
You mentioned the Omni to me, I had season tickets to the Atlanta Flames, and this tells you how long ago it was. My tickets were $5 a game for season tickets.
Wow.
But looking back, I mean, that place only set probably 12,000-15,000. It had some really angled seats, but it was a unique place, and they built it quick. I mean, it was like we didn't have a hockey team, we didn't have a basketball team. All of a sudden, we had both. It's like, where are we going to put them? And but the Omni was. I mean, the outside was supposed to do this rusting of the colors over the years, but it was breaking leaks left and right. So it evidently it oxidized too quickly.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons they tore it down to build State Farm.
Okay. One of the other things I found about State Farm, and maybe this is just my own, stupidity. A stupid foreigner doesn't know what he's doing. I found that inside like the concourses where like there were all of these turns, and
Cluttered.
the number of times I felt like I was lost in that place.
Yeah, depending on what side of it was, so like the side over there kind of where CNN Center was, I mean, that's kind of where the primary food court is and that type of thing. And then of course you've got it's the Southern food place at one end of the court. And then you kind of get on the other side and it's not a whole lot of services. I mean, there's, some basic concession stands, but I feel like it's kind of broken up helter-skelter on the concourses. That some of those concourses is extremely tight. And then too, if you're in the upper deck, like I say, I was at the King Day game, which, was pretty much a capacity crowd. And it took forever to get down from the upper level because you've got the escalators. And, you can only, really safely wise, you can only put one or two people across on that escalator.
Right.
And I wound up just going down the stairwell to get out of there.
Right. Well,
because everything was so backed up.
It'll be definitely interesting to see how the playoffs treat the Hawks and if they can translate this into a little bit more of a consistent run over the next few years. But that's our look at State Farm Arena, home of the Atlanta Hawks. Thank you, Lloyd, for joining us, and we'll hope to see you on the road again real soon. Cheers.
Come down to Atlanta.